Parliament Week, one of the greatest things I think about being here is just the history and heritage and tradition. It's not just tradition for its own sake. There's a very, very important whole side to that. But we are actually today in the third oldest parliament in the world. And actually the oldest parliament of any major country. The two older ones are the Icelandic Althing and the parliament on the Isle of Man. Both set up by the Vikings back in about the 11th or 12th century. This is, if you like, since it was founded or called first by Simon de Montfort in 1265, the oldest parliament of a major democracy in the world, which has actually spawned quite a few copycats. Whenever I go around the world, I see parliaments. You can see a lot of what they take was originally taken from this parliament. Even countries like the United States, even countries that, if you like, have now adapted that to all kinds of different ways. If you go to a country like Nigeria, you can see that that is based very much on the UK Parliament. The Canadian Parliament, which is very much in the news recently in relation to the outrage at the Canadian Parliament, you could see from the building and from the way the whole place is organised that is a very, very closely modelled on our Westminster. Now, for anybody who doesn't know what is a parliament all about, and sometimes people sort of lose track of this a little bit. So I'm going to run, it's not entirely clear all the different parts of what Parliament is about. Parliament is, first of all, about representative democracy. You know, we, as the people, elect representatives. I represent around 75,000 people in Chelsea and Fulham, and it's one part of my job is to make sure that their views are represented here in the House of Commons. That might be asking questions on behalf of the people of Chelsea and Fulham, making sure that issues that are relevant to Chelsea and Fulham are debated, laws that may have an impact on Chelsea and Fulham are also scrutinised and so on. So laws as well, it's our job to pass the laws of the country along with the House of Lords. Both houses of Parliament pass the laws of this country, incredibly important function. Accountability as well. The government, and I mentioned as well I'm part of the government is also accountable to Parliament, which is an incredibly important thing. I think a lot of people get sometimes confused between what is the government, what is Parliament, sometimes blame Parliament for something the government has done, whereas actually members of Parliament may well have passed the law, but not all members of Parliament agreed with the government, obviously almost by definition. So I'm going to just pass over to our panel in just a moment, but welcome again to Parliament. It's a great privilege and honour to be a Member of Parliament, to be able to welcome people. Doubtless I've got some of my constituents from Chelsea and Fulham here today, and I think we should be thinking about, in all of our deliberations, the importance and how much not just democracy is brought to people in terms of human rights and their own situation, their own ability to express their views, but also intimately linked with prosperity. Now, when you think about it, some of the poorest countries in the world have some of the worst government, and there's a very, very strong correlation, in my view, between prosperity and good governance in general, and a well-functioning and well-supported and active Parliament.
I was really lucky because I knew what I wanted to do from an early age. I was 15 when I first knew I wanted to work with vulnerable people and vulnerable groups, which has meant that I've seen a shift in how both gender and youth have been integrated into the process of policy making and programme management. When I first started, it was quite challenging, and looking into the future, I couldn't really see a way that I would be able to work in policy and in the field of democracy without 10 years experience, and I couldn't see how to connect those two dots. But now I see a shift in how we see the role of youth and in how we see the role of women. There are avenues for young people to get their voices across, and the Y20, as Vesna was saying, I was involved with, is one of those ways. There have been young diplomatic services that have been springing up from around the world, which is an incredible way to get different cultures to communicate with each other and bring ideas to shift how we see things. So in a time of globalization, where cultures are working with one another to champion progress and to fight for change, this is a really exciting time for youth to be becoming increasingly active in the process, and I personally am really looking forward to seeing how this dynamic grows and evolves over the years to come.
I feel personally that the best way to deliver culture is via diplomacy. most governments these days are wanting to export their cultures, and especially within the EU framework, where a lot of countries have joined the EU, so therefore, in order to avoid the aspect of federalism, which the EU has been criticised for, the EU is encouraging nation states, member states, to protect and export their culture. Now, the only way one can do that is via diplomacy, because diplomacy is, your diplomat is selling your country and your policies. I'd go back to youth. Democracy is about demos, it's about the people. And the people elect the government because it's the government by the people for the people. Now, what we are seeing in recent times, this is across the world, is a lot of young people want to get the vote, as we have seen recently in the Scottish referendum. Young people were saying we'd like to have a vote at 16. However, when people get to the age of the mid to late 20s, that interest in voting, in electing the members of parliament, is waning very strongly. And there is a certain indifference to parliament. Partly the messages I get is, oh, it doesn't make any difference as to whether I vote or not. And the other very heavy aspect I find is the lack of modernity in the voting system. I'd like to appeal to government ministers to make voting a little bit more modern, to catch up with technology. In these days of iPhones and iPads and what have you, does one really have to take a day off to go and vote? It doesn't have to be for everybody, but for people like me who live outside London, I have to go and vote in my local school or whatever. And that means I'm going to be very late or have to take a day off from work to be able to cast my vote. Now, why would it not be possible? And I do understand and I realize there are a lot of security implications in this. But why should it not be possible that to create a system where people can vote electronically through a phone, which is practically what we do everything by these days, or even through our home computers or whatever. So that is something that I feel very strongly it needs to be adjourned to modernity. It is effective, but it's outdated, I feel.
One of the factors of youth, to come back to youth, and the youth of today, they have many advantageous characteristics. One is their ability to experience immediately the environment, an area they are in. School, university, college, the area around their home. Some explore and have an opinion about their immediate environment that probably differs very often from their parents, lecturers, or older generations, and this actually picks up on something that was just being said. And the older generation do have a focus that becomes more limiting up to a point, even though we don't want it to be limiting. Mortgages, remits, family, workplace, they all come to make us look towards the remit of why we are there within that orbit. The young don't have that. And I think that the marvellous characteristic of the young simply isn't and hasn't been taken advantage of in this area that I'm now going to go on and illustrate. Two events I've been involved in the last 2 years. One by dint of being a member of the London Society was, for example, when Ken Livingstone introduced the Inner London congestion charge. One of the strange side effects that happened that depressed me very badly, really, the more I was involved in it, was that overnight, almost every private motorist did not go through Inner London anymore. They wouldn't pay, didn't want to pay, couldn't pay. So they detoured or took public transport. So yes, the congestion charge was, on the face of it, an idea to stop the congestion of traffic in central London. But what did we have left as vehicles in central London? We had red buses, black taxis, and white vans. If I could have seen, a pink car with white spots on it or something, I'd been delighted. But every day it was a procession of those three tones and colours. And it struck me, not that I'd been to Russia, and certainly I wasn't in Russia when Stalin was there, but it kind of had a kind of greyness about it, this monotonous of the same three colours and tones every day. And I thought, that's something, as that idea was put into practice, probably wasn't even thought about. How depressing can it be to be seeing the same three tones and colours every day in the areas of work and through which you travel?
From the culture and heritage point of view, while I was in the mayor in Hammersmith and Fulham, our borough was linked with Westminster and Kensington and Chelsea, so we formed the tri-borough group, which was very dynamic for the arts, for culture, for drawing in grants. It was a brilliant mixture, and we saved a great deal of money also. So that was that particular hat. I started off at the Accademia di Belle Arti in Florence, where I took my diploma and was given honours and the right to teach. Not that I took that up because I wanted to do it, but it grounded me. Living in Florence for 3 years was a fabulous cultural experience. I can recommend it to all of you. Even if you just go for a week, you will find it absolutely fabulous. I liked it better than Rome, which was very congested and, well, you could take a lifetime going around it, but Florence is bite-sized. You can really get hold of it, and it's very beautiful as well. Then we come to World Peace and Prosperity, where Prince Mosim Ali Khan, our chairman, invited me to help him found this foundation, which is, as Greg Hands was mentioning, you need peace and prosperity. And this is literally what we're called, Peace and Prosperity Foundation. And that is the foundation for culture, for democracy, for everything. And we hope to serve that, and we do encourage all the people that we found that are outstanding in various fields, and we recognise them with an award.
And I think that democracy is fuelled tremendously by communication. Modern communication getting better and better. Your point about modernising the voting system using modern communication instead of trudging to the polling station, filling it in. This is what is. It's almost Neanderthal technology of the Neanderthal age. So I congratulate you. Everything you've said has all helped me to clarify my own thoughts. It's wonderful listening to you. And Greg Hands, who raised the spectre of those many dead Eastern European ossified regimes. Thank you very much. That's my contribution.
It's the historical background of democracy we know, and we've heard just now, and we've explained what this House of Parliament is all about, how old it is, how it has evolved. And today when we sit in it, and every time I come here, I really feel very honored that I can enter this place, that I can sit here where government is, where people are making decisions on the running of the country and how their foreign relations, etc. So I feel very, very honored. I want more and more people from my community to come here, for them to see and understand how this government runs, how to make it successful. When I joined the Inland Revenue in 1973, there was a circular that was passed around that every Pakistani and Bangladeshi who made an application for child allowance or wife allowance should not be given that. Why? Because they discovered that all our people from Pakistan and Bangladesh and India would put down on their returns wife, 4 children, wife, 3 children, and they got the allowances, and they were very happy because they got a bigger pay packet. And they didn't know how the structure of the revenue worked or what it was all about. All it was, why have you got such a small pay packet? Haven't you added a wife and children? And this man would every year put in wife, 4 children, wife, 3 children. He would forget what he'd put down. He would forget the names because he posted this form. they discovered they were losing 50 million pounds in 1971-72 for wrong applications for the inland revenue. It was so embarrassing for me to be reading this. And then I spoke to the inspector of taxes and I said, these people don't understand. They only know I worked for so many hours, I've got so much salary, if I can get some more, that's how I'll get it. They don't understand the structure. Their countries have cheated them. My country has really not been a good country for the citizens of that country. And they have come with that background. They need to be explained, there has to be orientation, there has to be discussion on what it is that this country does for you for the money that you earn, for the tax that you pay. Anyway, these concerns have been a part of my life all the time, and how to inform women, how to inform people about. I did it when I was doing financial services.
19 years ago, in this very room, we launched the International Year for Tolerance, and this was a UNESCO initiative. At the time, Britain and the United States were not members of UNESCO, they had walked out. And so therefore, many people said, well, why do you want to have an International Year on Tolerance? Tolerance is such a negative concept. And indeed it was, until we realized that the French meaning of tolerance is curiosity. So by showing curiosity about somebody, then you can understand and therefore tolerate them. That was why UNESCO introduced this concept. And that made it so much easier. Now I will posit something, a debating point. No tolerance, no cultural democracy. You can't have one without the other. If, as we just heard, and it's not just the Pakistani women who've been here 50 years, who don't know what's not interested, who are not interested in what's going on, then they won't be encouraged to explore the benefits of cultural democracy. And that goes for so many minority communities.
This event has been part of Parliament Week, which was organised in collaboration with several different organisations, and they brought together a panel to discuss culture and democracy with a focus on youth. So the event has been primarily talking about how each of the panellists engages with culture and democracy, looking at partly on gender, others on the role in different countries, and how culture is represented in non-democratic and democratic societies. It was very interesting. There was lots of participation from the audience. A lot of the participation was based on how people engage with the idea of democracy and how that can be enhanced. And the event went really well. It was a success and everyone was very happy by the end of it, and there was lots of questions, which was great.
Hi, my name's Andrew Damons and I'm from South Africa. Today I came to the Youth and Democracy event in the House of Parliament, and I found it really intriguing. It answered all my questions, and I was delighted to see young people getting involved in politics. There was a young lady that answered my questions, and it was really influential on my decision to make a vote and make my vote count in England. Thank you.
Right now I'm sitting in the House of Parliament, supposed to be, the mother of Parliament. It's a good idea to introduce democracy. Now, I think, in my opinion, to give awareness, I think we should recognize one day holiday to celebrate the democracy. Then slowly, each individual, right from the childhood, they will become psychologically as well a part of that democracy. And that's the only solution, or that's the only way I could think to promote. And the media is very, very important. And I'm very grateful that how TVapex I find everywhere, and they're doing a very good job. I thank you very much indeed.
Hello, my name is Sarah Daly. I'm a French student studying here at UCL, doing a master's in international public policy. I have been a 120 French delegate for the G20 Youth Summit this year, and I'm really interested in youth policies and actually how to engage youth within the policy-making process, whether at a local, national, European or international level. I've been really pleased to attend this event today here at the House of Commons. It was really interesting to have different inputs from different people actually involved in the policy-making process here in the UK. We've had very interesting views from a member of parliament, from people involved in charities, in community-based projects. So it was really nice also to hear the views of different people from the public here. So really great event, and I'm really looking forward to the next Parliament Week next year.